Hey, what's going on, fam? So I just want to make another video. Basically, it's kind of like a part two to my "What does Byron Allen owe ADOS for our support" video, because I want to bring the video, or that video and that topic, that discussion, I want to bring it to a even more common sense level than I did in my last video. But before I even get into the meat of doing that, bringing the Byron Allen situation to an even more common sense level as far as what I'm trying to say, I just want to address one comment that that two people tried to say, and because two people said it, I don't want even more people to try to say it because it's a ridiculous talking point. But for those of you who got on my channel talking about my YouTube contract, the only YouTube contract that I agreed to is the same standard generic terms of service that you who are listening to my video agreed to. My videos are not monetized. Let me be very clear about that. My videos are not monetized. So I don't know if there's an extra contract that you have to, or a new terms of service that pops up when you monetize your videos. But as far as being unmonetized, that is the only terms of service that I ever agreed to. And that's the reason why I called it trolling, because I know some of you try to say, oh, I'm calling it trolling because I can't be disagreed with. No, I'm calling it trolling because you and I know, we all know, that we all agree to all kinds of random terms of service when you're on the internet. You agree to terms of service when you sign up for the Stars app. You agree to terms of service when you sign up for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everybody's got a term of service, especially in the online world that are technically de facto contracts. But y'all know we are talking about Byron Allen and how that does or does not relate to and does or does not affect the masses of black people. And again, my video, it wasn't about, it was, if you disagreed with my side of it, fine. Give me a logical, non-trolling reason why my question is wrong, or why my statements were wrong, or why my line of thinking was wrong. But do not start trolling about online terms of service and try to relate that to what I'm talking about and how I'm going to lose my online terms of service because I'm black, because Byron Allen, if Byron Allen loses the 1866 Act, I'm going to lose my terms of service with YouTube. That's ridiculous. And if y'all are really serious, and if that's really the only way that you can relate Byron Allen's suit to the masses of black people, that tells me all I need to know. That tells me all I need to know about those of you who are riding for Byron Allen. And I'll leave that at that. Now let's get on to the meat of why I want to talk about the Byron Allen situation again and bring more common sense to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip. I'm going to play audio because I tried to take a clip off the video and I was having some difficulty, and I just want to hurry up and get this video out instead of trying to take a while trying to figure my way around doing that. So I'm just going to play the audio. Antonio Moore, he released a video tonight, and I listened to the whole video. I don't do like some of you who do to my channel and, listen to a snippet of a video and then start running my mouth. I gave him the man the respect to listen to the whole video. Obviously, I'm not going to replay the whole video in this video, but I did listen to the whole video. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a specific clip, because this clip from the video, the audio of this segment of Tone's video, illustrates a point, or helps me to illustrate a point that I'm going to illustrate in just a moment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play that clip.
Any of us to not care about black folk. Tomorrow is a day for all of us to stand together, arm to arm, regardless of whether you mad at Byron for making money or not, whether you mad at him for being married to a white woman. Tomorrow is a day where you realize your anger with him is going to lead you to have nothing for your children, because you already ain't got a lot to go for right now. This law is the law that allows us to move from a memorandum of understanding signed by Sharpton, Morial, and Ben Jealous that gave us nothing to a real whole access. See, I'm telling you like this because I'm not guessing. See, what happened was Byron told Comcast, I want 10, 10, 10 for black folk. What's 10, 10, 10, Tom? He couldn't have did that. And he put a full-page ad in a couple major newspapers. I believe the Post was one of them. I want 10% of your 500 channels for black folks. I want 10 cents a subscriber. And I want a 10-year carriage deal. I don't want no arguments when we get that content going that everybody don't like. Do you know what kind of black wealth, how many black media, what kind of black photographers, what kind of black cameramen, what type of black lawyers, what type of black community, what type of real blackness comes out of owning 50 channels? Come on, man. I'm just saying. Ask Magic what he making on his channels. Ask Puffy what he making on his channels. Everybody got...
All right, fam. So that's the audio. Y'all just heard it. So the reason why I listened to Tone's video tonight was because I wanted clarity. I wanted more understanding on how this act is going to benefit me and benefit the masses of black society. And if you want more background of why I'm even asking that question, go listen to my last video. But I want more clarity on how is this going to harm me if Byron Allen loses this lawsuit? How is this going to harm the masses of black people if Byron Allen loses this lawsuit? I was looking for clarity. And unfortunately, after listening to all 45 minutes of Tone's video, I didn't get that clarity, even though he said in that video, if you don't believe me, you can go listen to it. And again, like I do with all my videos that I make about somebody who I'm opposed to, I'll leave the link to their video or their article in the description box. So I'm going to do that again, of course. I'm going to leave the link to Tone's video in the description box, so check it out when you have time, tonight, tomorrow, whenever, and see if I'm lying about what I'm about to say. But throughout that whole 45 minutes, I did not get a reason. And let me break down why I didn't get a reason, even though Tone seemed like he was giving a reason. He wasn't really giving a reason as to how this affects the masses of black people. Let me break it down for you. Tone says we will have nothing if Byron Allen loses this lawsuit. But out the other side of Tone's mouth, he says we already have nothing. We're already worth 17. The middle black family is already worth 1,700. The bottom of black people, the bottom 50% of black people, or whatever his stat is, I don't know the exact stat, but I know basically what it is. The bottom black people are worth less than $1. That's already having nothing. So how can you then turn around and tell me that if Byron Allen loses this 1866 Civil Rights Act lawsuit, that I'm going to have nothing? Tone, you and Yvette have been telling us for years, for year after year after year, that the only thing that's going to save us and make us have something is reparations. That's in a black agenda, and a massive black agenda that's going to lift black people up. You didn't tell us that the thing that's going to stop us or save us is the 1866 Civil Rights Act. You didn't tell us that as long as we maintain that, that'll keep us from having nothing. You told us that if things continue as they are, 1866 Act still in place and all, that we will have median zero wealth by 2053. You never said that losing the Civil Rights Act is why we won't have zero wealth by 2053. You just said if things stay as they are right now, which as of right now, the 1866 Civil Rights Act is, as I'm speaking right now at this moment, as I'm making this video, I'm actually making it, late at night. So as at 1:11 in the morning on November 13th, 2019, Eastern Time, As of right now, as of right this moment, now maybe in a few hours that will change, but as of right now, the 1866 Civil Rights Act is still in place. When Tone and Yvette told us that we would have zero wealth by 2053, I do not see anywhere in that article, anywhere in any of Tone's or Yvette's videos, where the 1866 Act is a qualifier to whether or not we will be at median zero wealth by 2053. And I just wanted to drive that point home, to drive the point of the inconsistency of everything Tone has said before and what he's saying now. Now let me break it down further. Tone is saying that a lot of things just because he says it. He says that we'll have nothing because he says we'll have nothing. But he doesn't give me a reason why, even though to someone who doesn't have a trained ear, it sounds like he is giving a reason why. Let me go a little bit deeper. Tone said the reason why is because Byron was fighting for 10-10-10, where it's going to be 10% of the channels, they're going to have a 10-year contract, and this, that, and the other, right? But here's the caveat, and why I was saying that Byron is fighting for himself and not the masses of black people. Because even though you're saying that you're demanding 10% be set aside for black people, Byron, you're one of the only black men who's in a position to own the 10% that would be allocated for black people. It's not like this 10% is being allocated to the masses of black people. So for those of you who are trying to relate this to our jobs and how we can get fired if Byron loses this lawsuit, now we can get fired because of race and we won't be able to do anything about it. When I agreed to my job, I didn't get to demand that 10% of my job be set aside, 10% of the bonuses be set aside for black people. I didn't get to make any demands like that, like Byron made. I wasn't in a position to do that. The masses of black people are not in a position to be demanding 10% of anything. I'm talking about business-wise. Now, we deserve way more than 10% of this wealth, of the wealth of this nation, obviously. But I'm just talking about in general in the position that we are now. Not what we're owed, not what we're deserved, not what we should be asking for, but what we're actually in a position to ask for. The majority of us are not in a position to ask for 10% of nothing, especially not with somebody we're trying to get a job with. So that doesn't really translate. It doesn't really translate. Byron Allen is in a unique position. He is in a unique position to take advantage of what he was demanding from Comcast. It's not like Byron was going to demand his 10% and then all of a sudden you, me, my grandma, my sister, my baby cousin, we was all now going to own 10% of some news channel or 10% of the weather channel. That wasn't going to happen for us. This only benefits people in Byron's situation. Let me go a little bit further because I know everything I've said so far is still not enough to prove to some people the points that I'm trying to make here. What's next? Tone said that this was going to create a lot of black jobs, black cameramen, black this, that, and the other. Okay. So this act was going to force Comcast to employ more black people than they already employed? No, it's not. First of all, let me give some disclosure. I'm an ex-employee of Comcast. I voluntarily resigned. I no longer work for them, but I'm an ex-employee of Comcast. When I worked at Comcast, there were a lot of black people there. I'm still friends with black people that are still working there. Comcast employs a lot of black people. This Byron Allen lawsuit has nothing to do with Comcast's willingness or non-willingness to employ black people. So I'm not sure what Tone was talking about when he made that point about all these black people that are going to get employment. And then on the other side, if you're trying to say that, well, this was going to allow these black channels to employ all these black people, Byron doesn't need that deal with Comcast to employ black people. Byron already owns the Weather Channel. Byron already owns media. He already owns his own media company. Are you trying to tell me that his media company is stacked from top to bottom with black people? Because I know for a fact that Byron Allen just brought in a white executive into his company. So I highly doubt that Byron Allen's business structure has 100% black employment from top to bottom. Or 99% minus this one executive that I know for a fact works with Byron and works for Byron. Or ex-CBS executive that works for Byron's business right now. If Byron was so intent on employing black people, he would already be doing that. This Comcast lawsuit has nothing to do with his ability to employ black people. Byron Allen has the business to employ black people. The man is one of the richest black men on the planet. He has the resources. He has the business to employ black people. He does not need the 1866 Civil Rights Act. Tone was saying things and then almost saying them like, because I said so, that's why it is. Not because I have these facts on how this translates to the mom who works at Kroger, or I have the facts on how this translates to me, or the technician for Comcast, for example, or whoever. And I'm talking about the cable technician for Comcast. Or the guy who works for the VA, or who does, contracts, the veteran who has contracts with the military through the VA because he was a black veteran, whatever you want to talk about. This does not tell me how, Tone's video does not tell me how that translates to us. He says it only translates because he says it translates. And because he says Byron's gonna hire black people, and because he says that Byron having the access to own 10% of channels, or have 10% of Comcast channels be dedicated to, be broad, 10% of Comcast channels be devoted to black channel owners like him. He does not tell me how that translates to us, outside of the fact that he says it does. Because again, I'm not denying that Byron ever, because I don't know that Byron said what he said Byron said. But just because Byron fought for black people on the surface, because he could not demand that you set 10% aside specifically for Byron Allen, because he has no basis. Why? Says who? Says who that you deserve this more than somebody else. And that has nothing to do with race. That says who that Byron Allen deserves that being set aside for him more than Puff Daddy. Says who? So Byron Allen could not say specifically for Byron Allen. So of course he had to say this is for the black people in general, because he's one of the only black people who have an opportunity to take advantage of that 10% set aside from Comcast. Now let's talk about one last thing, and this is where I was referring to earlier in the video, and this is how I'm going to wrap up and close this video. Common sense. When was 1866? It was right after slavery. Did black people have instant equality after slavery? Or was there about a 10-year grace period where we were kind of left alone, and then we had another 50 years of terrorism, or 100 years of terrorism, 100 plus years of terrorism? Reason why I'm pointing that out is because simple common sense history tells you the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was in place during Jim Crow, was in place in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when we had a civil rights movement. Why, if this law, this single law, is so protecting of black society, why wasn't it protecting black society in 1920 when it wasn't repealed? It's still around now. That's why y'all are fighting to make sure it's preserved, right? Why wasn't it protecting ADOS in 1930? Why have so many black people lost their jobs because they're black, been denied jobs because they're black? Why did Martin Luther King have to fight for the laws? Why did we have to have affirmative action after the 1866 Civil Rights Act? Why do we have to have all these other things after, if this law by itself was such is the single sole thing that protects our rights? It doesn't make sense. Just common sense. And then I know there's this fake argument about how it undergirds other stuff, but it couldn't even undergird itself when it was in existence for all this time. So that doesn't make sense. It makes more sense that these other laws that have been passed since have basically made that law moot, because these current laws have taken parts from that law, and basically the 1866 Civil Rights Act exists in other laws. So even if it went away, it's still, all the components of it still exist in other laws, like affirmative action. And this is common sense. Again, this is 1866, not the 1966 Civil Rights Act, the 1866 Civil Rights Act. So a common sense paying attention to history would tell you that this being for all black people, this being the end all be all law for all black people, just doesn't make common sense. It just doesn't pass the smell test. But anyway, fam, those are my points about this video, or about this topic. I'm done talking about this 1866 Civil Rights Act. It doesn't make sense when you're saying that these kind of laws are the laws that prevent white people from basically practicing white supremacy, because firing black people because they're black, that's white supremacy. All this other stuff that they're saying will be the consequences of losing out on this act. That's white supremacy. You're saying basically that white people are going to be able to be white supremacists without this law. But we know that even with this law in place, white people are already and still being white supremacists. And that's the problem when you don't understand white supremacy. And that's really how I want to close the video. I know I just said a couple seconds ago I want to close the video, but that's how I really want to close this video. What I was saying about Tone and Yvette still stands. They don't really understand white supremacy. And that's why I can't trust them to lead a movement like ADOS, which exists because of white supremacy. No, it don't exist. The ADOS movement don't exist because of immigration. Because immigration wasn't our problem in 1920, but we were still getting lynched. Immigration wasn't our problem during slavery, but we were still under racism. We were still getting oppressed. All of those things that I just named are part of the reason why we deserve reparations. Tone and Yvette themselves will tell you that's part of the case for reparations. So don't tell me about the ADOS movement is not about white supremacy, because it is. Even if Tone and Yvette themselves don't understand that, which I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't understand that. But that's why the movement exists, is because of the fact that we have white supremacy. If there was no white supremacy, there would be no need for an ADOS movement. It wouldn't exist. There would be nobody that would have even gave it a scintilla of a minute of time. A minute of their attention. Nobody would have given it a minute of their attention if there wasn't a system of white supremacy that creates the situation and the need for an ADOS to exist. It was white supremacy from the moment we step foot on this country, on this soil, as black people. And yes, immigration and other things have been used to help oppress the ADOS community, but it is not the end-all be-all of the movement. It's not the reason why the movement exists. And for you to sit here and tell me that this act is going to determine whether or not white people are able to practice white supremacy, that just doesn't make common sense. I don't need the data to know that doesn't make sense. But anyway, fam, I'm actually going to release one more, if not two more videos tonight, because I'm seeing a lot of things go on that are concerning me. They're not all about Tone and Yvette. I actually have to make a video about Tariq, unfortunately. And I'll explain that in the video that I make about him. But anyway, that doesn't change the fact that what I'm saying about Tone and the 1866 Civil Rights Act, that doesn't change any of that. But anyway, fam, this is another video. Like, share, subscribe.